Welcome back to Hoflashes and Cool Topics today. We are so excited to be welcoming back Stacy London to the show. Welcome back.
Hello, my old friends. I'm so happy to see you. It's been a second since we've been on a chat.
I
It
know it
has
really
been.
has. And
Yeah.
you have been busy. We have been watching you and you have been busy. It's just, we kind of got started in the menopause world around the same time.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun to watch how everyone is growing and expanding and changing. And oh my
Even the
gosh.
even the menopause industry is growing,
hmm
expanding, and changing. I mean, people come up to me and still say they don't know anything about menopause, which I'm like, really? Just open any newspaper, any magazine, go on any website, and somebody's talking about menopause. And on the other hand, I think that as a vertical, has gone through a lot of different iterations since we started.
Right.
And it was really, it's really picking up momentum now in the way that I think it always should have, rather than just be about companies that were offering either services or product for menopause. We are now talking about menopause and the physiological implications of menopause as we age, as something that we need to study and understand in order to have preventative care, in
Right.
order to know what's happening to our bodies at any given time of our, age cycle, life cycle. And because we didn't know about menopause, I really am very struck by the fact that Gen X has sort of taken it upon themselves to get to this age and say, we will not stand for this kind of ignorance. We want clinical research and we want products that will help, and we want to understand hormones and we want to understand their connection to breast cancer or not their connection to breast cancer. And I think that for the first time in a long time, I've seen a big population of people uh, reclaim a kind of freedom in order to discuss things that have always been, talked about in shadows and in secret and out of fear or shame. And those things are really changing. And that I think is wonderful.
Yeah. I love that about Gen X too. I hope that they're looking to us to lead the way. But I think that a lot of topics, they're like, we don't care. We're going to hit it head on, whether it's I've been sexually harassed or this has happened to me. What I'm going through, I demand, like you said, more research, and I demand more research on women. I
Yes.
think that that is really something. I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud to see that happening.
And I think, a lot of people have sort of settled into their spots. Like, I think looking back now, me trying to run State of Menopause was not the right company for me to really do what I wanted to do. And the minute that I, realized that we were getting millions of hits to the site and very little conversion was when I realized, like, you kind of can't make menopause a beauty problem. And that's not to say there aren't great products out there that have unique ingredients that are for aging skin or for menopausal skin or hair or anything. But that's only one aspect of this. And to really advocate for um, people experiencing menopause, I think it is much more about what are we doing on the medical level and what are we doing on the policy level. And it has less to do with whether or not I had the right face oil, because that's not going to help you if you're having a nervous breakdown, right? If you're having like a complete mental breakdown, lavender face oil is not going to help you. And I realized, I didn't feel like our ingredients were unique enough or specific enough. And to be quite honest, I felt like I did not want to be on that side of the coin, solely because I felt like I was profiting off of suffering in a way that I wasn't as helpful as I could be in another way. I don't want to profit off of suffering. I want to profit off of people stopping suffering, right? And
Right.
so I much prefer the idea that once I got out of the product lane, I was much more able to advocate with like real conviction and real passion, because I'm not worrying about any bottom line. And it really also brought me back around to why I wanted to leave fashion, why I wasn't interested in styling people anymore, or style in general. And it brought me back around to talking to people more about not just the physical, the emotional aspects of menopause, and not simply the skin or hair or what we would consider more beauty aspects of menopause, but much more about this sense of identity, that there was a real loss of identity and self-esteem. Who I was is not who I am. I don't know what I'm going to become. This is scary. I don't feel the same. I don't look the same. and really finding a way to regenerate that self-esteem that we may have had as insecure teenagers, that we may have had at many times in our lives. There's a real drop in the way that we perceive our own worth. And that's societal and cultural, and we've internalized all of those things. So to come out on the other side of this and find not only a new interest in fashion again, but an interest specifically in looking to the needs of people in our generation who are either going through the Hoflashes and things like that, or are really experiencing an identity crisis of, I want to look relevant, I want to look fashionable, I want to look powerful, but I don't know how to do that. I did that at 30, and at 50, it doesn't feel the same. I did that at 35, at 55, I don't feel the same. How do we ebb and flow with sort of the changes and our taste preferences over time? And I really feel that there's a lot to say here at this moment when we are sort of least physiologically able to think well of ourselves, or pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, is when you need style and things that are easy to make you feel good, just to make you get out the door. And
Right.
that's sort of where I landed.
Well, there are so many layers to what you just said over the last couple minutes that I want to unpack. But what I wanted to start with was, you did have the brand state of menopause.
Yeah.
You kind of went into more advocacy at that point.
Yes.
And like us, you kind of got to see who was rising up in the conversations and who was kind of almost just pivoting to something else.
Mm-hmm.
What we have found is that there is the medical conversation. Like you said, there's the personal conversation. There's, how do I feel about my body? How do I feel about myself? Who am I if I'm not a parent, if I'm not a CEO? And there's so many layers to that. When you pivoted outside of, let's say, a brand per se, what did you find as far as your focus? What drove you with more of a passion?
Well, I think the thing that really drove me was what I like to call the big feelings of menopause, the big ones, the anxiety, the depression, the rage. In some cases, I think there's even a lack of empathy. We get so caught up in what we're going through that it can make us, so irritable with others, with coworkers, with family, whatever it is. But it was those big feelings and the fear of those feelings and the fear of not understanding those feelings, or the fear that there was nowhere safe to express those feelings, is when I really started to get interested in that aspect, right? What you're talking about, what I would say is the more psychological aspect and emotional aspect of menopause rather than the physical. And I think that is because even on What Not to Wear, when, it's not like we didn't have a menopausal person on every week, but we were dealing with the same kinds of issues, in that you lost your way, or you don't recognize yourself, or you don't believe in yourself enough to be the person you've always wanted to be. And sometimes you just need a little kick in the butt or a great blazer to remind you you are the badass that you've always been, but you have got to be kinder and more gentler with yourself as you age. All of these things that I had to learn, I feel, are things that I want to impart as information to people who are much younger than us, who are people in their 20s and 30s and 40s, so that when they're here, there is no crisis, right? We've been talking about a midlife crisis since the beginning of time. Why? Why do we have to have this midlife crisis? If we had a plan for what to do in each stage of our lives, whether or not we want to get married, whether or not we want to have children, whether or not we want to adopt, all of these things, why can't we say we're going to treat our health and make kind of future plan decisions? Women are much better at preventative care than men are, right? They only go to the doctor when something hurts. We get mammograms every year. We do all of these things for preventative health care. That I think that is going to start to be the standard in the way that we look at menopause, that people will understand there are ways to improve the menopausal experience before you get here. And we will have given you all of that information. So to me, I like to talk like, Hey Perry, the community app that is so wonderful. And part of the reason that I love it so much is you can jump on and be like, I am feeling crazy. Somebody talk me down off a ledge. Like, I want to tear my hair out and it is falling out. And you can write your rant. And all of these people thousands of people who have experienced something exactly like this don't have to speak your language to understand where you're at. And connection and community is so essential when we are lost, when we feel adrift, when we feel confused. And that's what I'm starting to see, is that the biggest coup that we have created in getting people to talk about menopause is getting people to connect with each other on a level that I think they feel they were never allowed to connect on, that it was too embarrassing, that we weren't allowed to show our turtle tummies and, really tell the truth. Whereas telling the truth has kind of set this movement free.
Right. And, as an advocate, and Colleen and I want to advocate as well, and you have a really large platform to be an advocate with. What would you say to someone starting out in this journey? Like, let's say a 40-year-old or a 42 or 43-year-old is like I was when I was 42 or 43. And I thought, what is happening to me at night? Why are my sheets soaking wet? What are some things you would say to them as an advocate?
Well, I would say the minute you start to see anything changing in your body that is significant and pretty consistent is something that you should start to write down. If you never used to sweat when you slept before and all of a sudden you're waking up in a pool of sweat, that's something to take note of, right? And what I learned from the esteemed Dr. Jen Gunter is that you should write down, start noticing feelings, uh, physical symptoms, things like, joint pain, things that you might not normally have after a gym visit. And then all of a sudden you feel really lousy. You just start to note changes in your physical and emotional states that you don't recognize from before, or you don't recognize just like snapping into a rage. That's not really like you. Things like that. I always say it's the things that don't feel like us are the things that we should be writing down. And that can mean I don't look like myself. Like I have crow's feet, or my eyes are starting to sag, or whatever it is that is related to a change, a transformation into where you are. You're going from one phase to another. And that takes some acceptance. And then when you can look at that list, you can reorder it into the things that are making you the most uncomfortable, the things that are disrupting your day, the things that are making it difficult for you to deal with other people. And let's just say you said hot flashes were number one and insomnia is number two, and followed by a close second of, rage. You can bring that to a doctor when you only have an average of 11 minutes with your physician, and 5 of those minutes are taking clothes on and off. You already have the 2 biggest issues that are causing you difficulty in your life that a doctor can then take a look at and say, wow, maybe this, if you're in the right age, this is probably hormonal. We don't need to do any testing. If you fall outside the average age, maybe we do a hormone panel and see, what your hormones are up to. And then we can talk about what are the things that you can do to be proactive in this experience. And we've got amazing doctors now who are really leading the charge in terms of having those conversations. But what Jen said to me, and several doctors since, Dr. Jessica Shepard said this as well, is that if you come in with those 2 or 3 big changes, the first time you see your doctor, after you're starting to experience things you're not used to, that really helps a doctor understand what to focus on. And then a lot of the other symptoms or, issues that you may be experiencing might disappear if the big ones are treated. So it's always important to kind of go in with a priority list. Know ahead of time what you need to say. This is not an adjunct to your physical once a year. This is an appointment with the gynecologist, ideally not an OB gynecologist, somebody who specializes in gynecology for midlife and older, who can really sit down and talk to you about your options and really understand the things that you're talking about. This is not just a 15-minute conversation. This is also still a lot about our own agency to do our own research and to find, reputable doctors and to really do our homework so that we aren't being fooled by the grifters that come along with any huge explosion in a vertical.
Right. We've heard the doctors say the door handle question. These are not the door handle questions when they're ready to walk out the door. And if your doctor is not addressing that, go to Menopause
Fire
Society.
your doctor.
Fire your doctor.
It's okay
and
to
go
break
to
up with your
Menopause
doctor.
Society and find a doctor on Menopause Society.
Absolutely. NAMS is a great resource. I also say Electra Health is a great resource.
Right.
Yes.
You know, Evernow,
MIDI.
City Health,
Many, so many. Yeah.
they're really all doing things that are for your benefit, right? I mean, in terms of giving you information, you don't have to buy anything. You don't have to get hormones from them. I think it is really important that we start to recognize it's not just NAMS, that there are other places and companies and platforms that are really doing what they can. Tamsin Fidel just did the M
Oh, yeah.
Factor
Mhm.
documentary.
Yep.
If you can see it, see it. These are things that are meant to be educational tools for the layperson who really doesn't know what's going on.
Right.
Like all of a sudden they feel weird and different. And these, I feel like this wave of people are the ones who are spreading the most germane information that is very easy to share with others. And, that's what I do. I get phone calls now all the time by my friends. Like, I wasn't paying attention to you when you were really talking about menopause, but help me now. Right.
Right.
Well, only
Yes.
when they get there, when I'm like, girl, if you had started listening to me at 35, you wouldn't have been in this place.
One of the things that I've been hearing in your voice is this wonderful new passion, it seems, that you have
Yeah.
generated again. And in the beginning of our interview, you said that you had kind of lost a passion for style and then it came back.
Mm.
We are talking to a lot of women who are either hitting the menopause day and being postmenopause that are finding that passion again in their lives. They're
Absolutely.
either discovering it from before, that it was quietly in their lives, or it's kind of knocking on their door. What was your journey like?
I think my journey was, several fold. And, I think that part of it was losing my father. I think that part of it was having a very extreme perimenopausal set of experiences that I didn't know were perimenopausal. And so I felt very much outside the loop. Like I just was constantly doing mental gymnastics to explain what was going on to me. And yet none of it made sense. So it really does kind of set you can't get sea legs when you don't feel stable in any way. For me, the way out of those things is to talk about them. For me, the way out of not wanting truly, like having even some suicidal ideation in menopause, was to say, I can't be the only one. And if I can't be the only one, then what am I doing to find the others who are going to need help too? Because maybe we can help each other. And I really believe that now I am not a person who asks for help. And I was just in a situation that was so painful and so uprooting that I finally, like, I raised the flags, I got the sirens going, I called all of my friends, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to make it through this one by myself. First time I ever asked for help, because I was so afraid that somebody would turn me down or trivialize how sad or upset I was. And every single friend came to the rescue. Every single friend came to the rescue. And I also feel like part of that passion that you're talking about isn't that I just found style again. I never thought that I would lose style completely. I knew she'd come back. But this idea that my friendships are fewer and more meaningful than they've ever been in my life was what I needed. What I needed to learn. What I needed to learn is like, A, you can let people in, and B, you don't have to let everybody in. There are people who don't deserve your time or your energy, and maybe they did for a while and they don't now. Whatever that is, you can keep chipping away until you have the ideal friend group that you can be yourself around, that you can laugh with, that you can cry with. And that I also think is a huge important lesson for women as we age. We say we talk about having it all, which, Randy Zuckerberg wrote that book about, like, you can have three things. You can't have all the things, right? You've got to pick and choose. But I think that certainly as I get older, not having children, not being married, I recognize the importance of friendship and community in a completely different way. And those feelings of competition or unworthiness or comparison, that was for my youth. I don't care about that stuff anymore. I want to be around like-minded, intelligent people who have something to say and do want to help and do want to contribute to society. The thing that I really did find is that I love working, Colleen. Like, I
Okay.
loved working on State Up. I really loved it, but it wasn't the right thing for me. And now that I've been doing all these other things like designing for QVC and working on a show for Amazon, not only am I back in my element of what I grew up knowing, I'm in this element in a completely different way, with a completely different mindset. And it's changed the way I style. It's changed the way I think about clothes. It's changed the way I think about aging. And I think that, anybody who is willing to lean into this process is going to realize there is hardship and it can be difficult, but there is so much to be gained from this moment. There is so much self-acceptance and realization that happens after menopause. I almost can't, I don't have terms for it, it's so big. And I really think it does, we've mocked it for so long because we've mocked this particular time of life for so long. And that, for me, that is over. Like, I'm done making fun
Yep.
of it.
Yeah.
I'm down for a great laugh, but I'm done making fun of, or trivializing is maybe a better word, this kind of midlife experience. It's a massive experience, and it can be both challenging and absolutely breathtaking if we do it right.
Right.
Mic drop. That's a mic drop
Yes,
right
that
there.
is. I saw, was watching you and Mally on QVC. I was watching that, and you said something. I thought I loved it. It was about the stages. They call the maiden and the mother,
Yes.
and
So it's
you've
the
inserted
archetypal,
one. Yes.
yes, the
Yeah.
archetypal stages of woman are maiden, mother, and crone. Now, normally, I think after menopause, you get put in crone, whether you feel like a crone or not. And thank God for modern day haircuts and cosmetic dermatology. We don't look like the Golden Girls, right? Even in the 80s, we look way younger than they did then. And what I think is that we missed a category. We missed a stage between mother and crone. And an executive producer I was talking to said this word because a lot of people have said it's the witch. I get that. It's like we don't care about patriarchal rules anymore. So it's easy to kind of villainize us. And that sort of makes us this kind of mean character. I call it the enchantress because I believe this is when we are absolutely creating something alchemaic. This is only for us at this time of life. And it is a big wake-up call.
That's amazing. And we have naturally been pivoting over the last year to kind of the post-menopause conversation because
Yeah.
when we were in the beginning, as you were, we were going through it. We were in Perry and we were experiencing all that. And then once you get post, it's like you're coming out of this fog where you were so overwhelmed with everything in life. And there's a clarity, there's a beautiful kind of confidence that comes out of you. And we have talked to so many women who have felt that, seen that, chose their friends more wisely, like we were
Yeah.
talking about, maybe found something that they were interested in their 20s and 30s that they didn't think they would ever be interested in again. And it's just kind of a resurgence. Like you
Yes.
reignite this passion of life. So I agree with you. I think Bridget and I say there's some secret sauce when you turn 60 that it's like your badass era. Like
I
you
mean,
just
I'm really looking forward to that
I am
so
because
too.
are
I
we.
am
So
right?
too.
we keep saying three
I
years we
really
can't
am.
wait.
We've got 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, Jodie Foster, I heard her talk a lot how the 50s, like I think that my late 40s were the much more difficult sort of identity crisis for me. But she said she really struggled in her 50s. She really didn't know what she wanted or whether or not she wanted to act anymore. And she turned 60 and like some light bulb went off and just
Right.
everything became easier. And I really do think that's if you're leaning in, if you're listening to yourself, if you're trusting your gut, all of the things that we've been told never to do as, particularly as women, I think we need to start learning what's best for us. Not what's best for, hustle culture, not what's best for an attention economy. I think we need to figure out where we are going to thrive, especially since, in the very near future, we're going to have 5 generations in the workforce for the first time ever in history. I don't know what that does to work I don't know what that does to age. I don't know whether we are considered, wise and needed in companies that are going to have younger people who still need to move up the ranks, or if you'll hire younger people for cheaper rates and have them learn on computers that we don't understand yet. I don't know. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see the way multi-generations have got to work together. And I really believe now, being on the other side of menopause and still postmenopausal, will always be postmenopausal. I think two things have come up for me. One, that I'm hopeful that the way that we start to evolve and change and lean into what I'm going to say is the fear, right, of what's happening to us, because we're maybe not cognizant of everything that it is. And also the grief of saying goodbye to who we were, and maybe to the people who we were, during that time in our lives. But what I think is, if you're leaning into this, it is going to, right? I always say it's like you can worry about it or you can wonder about it. You can sit at home and freak out about it, or you can be inquisitive, right? I say I'm in my inquisitive phase, not my acquisitive phase. I'm done with things. I don't need to buy any more things. I don't need more clothes or more property or what. I don't need that. What I need is to do something that's much more internal, that allows me to look at the external differently. I have no care in the world about, the way that I'm perceived by other people. It is really about whether or not I'm doing the work myself. And this is the first time I feel really free and able to do that.
Right. That's goes in turn with your friends, who your real friends are, the ones that you want to stick around. When you don't worry about how you're perceived,
Yes.
your true friends are the ones that are there for you. That
Yes.
makes, yeah.
And
Really,
as a
really.
people pleaser, my entire life, I think, as most of us have been, especially our generation, and generations before us, even worse, it's very hard for me to be myself, just myself, around people. My friends who knew me before I ever did television probably know me better than anybody who met me after television, because television, I kind of constantly felt I had to be on. I felt I had to meet a fan's expectation level, or, I would disappoint somebody somehow if I wasn't being that Stacy. And all of my friends know I'm not that Stacy. All of my friends know, like, I can be snarky for sure, but that's not who I am. And as I've aged, the more I know myself, the less people I want to be around.
So, yeah, that right there is the quote we're going to be using
Yes,
for this
and
podcast.
it's not,
right
and it's
there.
not, I've made some great, don't get me wrong, I've made some great friends as a grown-up, which
Yes.
to me, even in my 50s, I've made friends that they're usually women that I admire, that I either knew about or heard about and was lucky enough to get to meet and really value and love to converse with them, just for their experiences alone. But that's not to say I reject everyone and everything, but I'm able to reject now the things that were never for me to begin with, that I forced to be mine, or that I forced to do, that I forced myself to do in order to make somebody else happy, instead of recognizing, no, this is not for me, or, I shouldn't live here, or whatever it is. Pushing those feelings down, instead of saying, you know what, you're better off telling the truth and figuring it out from there than people pleasing everybody and actually making no one happy.
And we go back to, it just seems like there is this light bulb that goes off postmenopause, that we just have this inner, like, just an inner knowledge of what is acceptable for us, as opposed to what should be acceptable for everybody else, and live within that.
I feel like if we were some kind of fine technological machinery, right? It's just that we've been recalibrated. Like,
Right.
there's a new normal for us that changes our perception about everything else. And things that I would never have admitted to friends, God, when I was in my 20s or something, when I was so embarrassed about everything, I'm like talking, hours to them about, like, oh my God, you should have seen me fall down this step of stairs. It was amazing, but just things that would have made me feel self-conscious or stupid or idiotic. I don't care anymore. I
Right.
Right.
care. What difference does it make? And I will be very honest. I'm at the end of this week, I'm going to speak at something called the End Well Symposium, which is End Well is a platform to talk about death and dying.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that menopause has really truly done for me has changed my relationship to mortality. And it's the first time I ever really thought about it when I was in perimenopause and my father died. And I thought, oh, there's nobody left. I'm next.
Right.
That's generationally, I just watched the closest member, of my family leave. And it really made me start thinking about the value of life, the value of the time we have here. But the fact that we don't talk about death as anything other than scary or morbid, when we didn't even talk about menopause at all, and look at us now. And I realized that one of the things that I find very interesting is looking at new business verticals that have a social context to them, that will have a social and cultural impact to them once we stop making them so taboo. So for me, this idea of talking about menopause, we're well on our way to, we're going to be out of business, ladies, because we're not going to have to advocate on behalf of this anymore. We are going to have to advocate on behalf of accepting death, what death is going to look like, how we prepare our families, how we can look at what they're doing in psychedelics or what they're doing with death doulas or even end of life care and what it means to be a caretaker. All of these things are coming up because Gen X is having to face them. We've been caring for our parents. We're not going to live in retirement communities that are all like little white houses in Florida. A lot of us are like, hey, we're not going to be able to afford to retire. Let's all move in together. Like intentional communities, I think, are going to be a very big topic of conversation for our age group. And so why not start talking about them now? Like somebody was like, you're going to go talk about dying? Yeah, I am going to talk about it because we shouldn't be afraid to. The same way we shouldn't be afraid to talk about menopause. It is not professional suicide to look at the things that you cannot avoid, which is, as I found out, menopause, if you have female physiology, death and taxes. Now, taxes, I don't know enough about, and it's so boring to me that I could never talk about that. And it's not a taboo topic. We just complain about taxes. But menopause and death are.
Right.
And I don't know why. Because if we were less afraid and more knowledgeable, then we wouldn't fear what we don't know.
Right.
That's just the way I think about it.
Yeah, we've had a few people
We've
that
had several.
that
Bridget
talk
knows
about
I
death.
have I'm kind of obsessed with the whole concept of death and the acceptance of it and walking into it. And I just find it fascinating because, like you said, it's just that taboo topic that no one wants to talk about. And it's people are afraid of it. And it's a shame because if we talked more about it, if we took, like you said, changing your fear into wonderment and wondering what it's going to be like, then maybe we would value the present moment more because we exactly. And so bravo to talking about end of
Yay.
life.
I need to be
You.
wondering a lot more right now because I had trouble sleeping last night because I started thinking
Okay.
about things in the short term.
Yes.
And I started thinking about them and ruminating in my head. And I was like, oh my goodness, what? And I need to wonder more because,
Yes, and it is
yeah.
fast. And I will say, just for anybody who may be dealing with an ill parent or somebody who's passed away very recently,
Mhm.
there were two books
Mhm.
that really saved me that I read while my dad was ill, and one of them was Atul Gawande, Being Mortal,
Yes.
Oh,
Amazing
yeah.
book. Love
Oh,
it.
yeah.
and he is an amazing man. I am
Mhm.
very lucky enough to have spent some time with him. And
Oh,
after I read
wow.
the book, I was so completely floored by what we could be doing for the elderly community, by how we could change their well-being so drastically in such simple, inexpensive, and effective ways. And then the other half of the story is that, in the middle of writing this book about how we can take better care of the elderly, his father gets ill. And it really was very similar story in the way that his father sort of went downhill. But what was interesting was that he taught me how to treat my father when he was alive. not worry about how I was going to feel after he died. He was sick, and I was with him pretty much every day for the 6 months before he passed away. And I can remember almost every single one of those days because I tried my hardest to be there. And I tried my hardest not to think of him as somebody already gone. And, sometimes he was out of it and sometimes he wasn't, but he would tell me what he wanted to do that day. For example, he would want to walk to the office. And the man could barely walk across the street at that point. He had a lot of trouble breathing, catching his breath. And normally what families do is like, come on, Dad, you can't walk to the office. Like, let's watch the game, right? But what Dr. Gawanda taught me was that you say, okay, we're probably not going to make it all the way to the office today, but let's walk in that direction. And if we make 100 steps in that direction, tomorrow we'll take 101. And I would encourage my father in that way and dignify his wants and needs above my own fear of losing him. And it really changed the way that I was able to accept his passing. And the other book is called 7 Brief Lessons on Physics by Carlo Rovelli, which was all about astromechanics and quantum physics, which does sound a little heady and weird, but 7 Brief Lessons on Physics. Carlo Rovelli is a poet as well as a physicist. And so he is translated from the Italian, but he writes so beautifully. And he talks about the fact that, energy can change form, but it can never die. And I thought, oh, when I look at the sky and I know that I'm made of the same stuff as stars, my dad is still with me. He's in the air, he's in the soil, he's in the trees, he's in the stars. He's everywhere I am because I'm not going to lose his energy. It just changed form. And for me, that was also such a deep comfort, knowing that like the world, the universe is like filled with questions we don't have answers for. We don't have to have the answers in order to have the experience. Rather than be afraid of the experience, we can just have the experience.
And so many of us are having it as Gen X.
We are. Yeah, it is.
I have my mom living with me. Bridget's got her father-in-law that's going through stuff.
He's going through stuff. He's not
Yeah.
here.
I'm so sorry. It's so hard.
But it's just a part of life, and it's everybody has their own personal experience. But like we said before, when you feel like you have support around you, when you say, I can't do this alone, I need support, it makes a world of difference. So opening the conversations up and saying, yeah, I'm going through this too. What helped you? What did you read? Who did you talk to? We talked to David Kessler a couple weeks ago about the 5 stages of grief, and he added a 6th for meaning.
I think there are not. I thought there were 9 now.
There might be. He got approval. Finding meaning because for all of his grief expertise, when he lost his son, he had to go to grief groups with a hat and sunglasses because he didn't want people to know that it was him. He was just
his
a dad.
Books were on the table of advice, and he didn't want them to know that's me that wrote those books because I need help.
And I need help. Right. I remember. Did I say this? I may have said this in another interview today because I feel like I'm having deja vu. But I remember when I was going out, I was doing my book tour for The Truth About Style. This was like 2012 it was 2013 or 13 or 14. I don't remember. Anyway, the point being that when I went out on that tour, I went away to a spa, like just to get relaxed and like get ready because it was a very grueling travel itinerary. And I went to a place called the Golden Door, which is in outside San Diego.
Oh, right. Okay.
I love the instructors there. I learned so much there. But I was taking instructions with a Tai Chi instructor. And I was saying how nervous I was to go out and do this book on the truth about style when I didn't feel very good about myself. I'd gained a lot of weight and I was like, how do I go talk about style when I don't look stylish and I feel bad about myself? And how can I give people advice when I'm not coping with this well? And he said to me, we teach what we need to learn.
Oh,
and
wow.
if you can embody the lesson, then you're doing the teaching. He was like, stop worrying and start talking about the fact that look what you had to learn in order to be able to teach what you're saying.
Well,
I mean,
that
yeah, that's like
again,
just
there's
this world
another
of,
quote that's
yeah.
going in the social media
But it is
posts.
just like, where it came to menopause and this time of life, we wanted to learn more.
Of
So
Right.
course.
So you
we're
had to
learning
take
more
it
and we're
upon,
trying to
and now
advocate.
the
Yeah.
next generation won't need to work as hard as we did.
They will not.
I would add a third. We had actually Catherine Mannix, Dr. Catherine
Oh, yeah.
Mannix. We had her
So
on
good.
probably a second season, and she wrote a book that I was looking up for with the end in mind. And she has been
Mm.
a hospice doctor for 20, 30 years. And she actually does like a 5-minute video on YouTube that shows you what death is like to take the fear away. Because she said more people die the same way than you think. And it is a process, just like life is a process, death is a process. So listeners, we would recommend that third book.
Yes, she was
Yeah, that
fantastic.
sounds
Yeah.
great. I need to read that.
Yes,
Right.
Dr. Catherine Mannix. She's amazing. We loved her. And
And
Bridget, so
I'm sure you've had Dr. Sharon Malone on.
oh
Oh, yeah.
yes, yeah.
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 And, her book, Grown Woman Talk, is not just about how to take care of yourself post-menopause. I mean, it really is. She discusses what to do in terms of writing your will, what to do in terms of burial plots. Like, it's Grown Woman Talk because these are things that at our age we should be talking about. And this idea that they're morbid or that we don't appreciate the life we have is just bull. That just,
Right.
it drives me crazy that when people hear me say something about death, they're like, oh, good time, Stacy. I'm like, your
Yeah.
perception is exactly what needs to change. You think that the way you think about death and the way most people think about death is the way to think about death because that's how we've always done it. That doesn't mean anything, right?
Right.
We grow, we evolve, we learn new ways of speaking and being and reacting. And I find it very stressful that people consider death to be such a taboo topic. And
Mhm.
so I'm out to change that as much as I'm out to talk about menopause. And really, for me, that triangulation between menopause and its relationship to death really happened when I started to think about my cognitive, my cardiac, and my
Oh,
bone health.
yeah.
Yep.
And how
Mhm.
many things can go wrong if I'm not taking care of myself,
Right.
which really leads you down the path. Like your brain is going to do this naturally. Why don't we give your brain some guardrails so you don't go flying off the cliff and start spiraling out of control that you're going to die tomorrow, but that you understand that this is a natural phase, just like menopause or being born.
And the things that are preventative are the things that
Yes,
we can do now that we are in our
yes.
50s and our
Right.
60s. And
And
I
like
know,
one of
yeah.
those things, Dr. Frank Lipman wrote that book, How to Be Well. And it's a lovely textbook. And, of course, it has the nutrition and the sleep hygiene and exercise, but community and meaning, again, to your point, Colleen, are essential to live a good life. They are essential. And as I age, I don't want to lose meaning. I don't want to lose purpose. That is exactly why in Atul Gawande's book, when he talked about a nursing home, he said they brought in, I think, 6 dogs, 8 cats, and everybody got a parakeet in this nursing home. The amount of medication distributed every day went down 50% because people had a reason to get up in the morning. They had something to take care of. Even if it's a plant, we need each other. We need a community in order to keep each other well. And I think the more we understand what's happening politically, what's happening technologically, it is important that we stay connected to each other as in physical ways. It's extremely important.
Dan Buettner, the Blue Zones, totally
Mhm.
agrees with that. Then
Yes.
his 9 power levels. One is community, and another one is faith, if that's what you're into, because it builds
Or
community.
yeah, it
Yes.
doesn't necessarily have to be religious. It could just
No,
be
but
a, yeah,
faith-based
faith.
communities,
Yeah.
and just because you're connecting and you're communicating and you're feeling a part of the world. And I think
Yeah, and
the
I'll be
ice,
honest, I really envied kids who, went to church every Sunday or temple every Saturday, only because they had a community always ready to go to, always ready to help. And I did not grow up with religion. So for me, I was like a complete atheist for a long time and real existentialist. And I was like, Nietzsche's right. God is dead, right? And I guess maybe because of my dad, I don't think of God as like a white man with a long beard. You know, my interpretation of God is science and math. It is the universe. It is everything that we are experiencing right now. The phenomenon itself has no explanation. So that even in itself to me is reason to believe in things that we can't know. And that's what God feels like to me. And, you know, I don't know. I hope that doesn't offend anybody. It's not
No, I don't
true.
think, I mean,
I know. I
they
think the energy,
shouldn't.
like you
It
said, the
shouldn't.
energy when you look up at the stars and you feel
Right.
that energy
Mm.
is you've got
Yeah.
your
I mean,
father
I
And I
talk
there.
to
feel
the
like we're
universe all the
all,
time.
there was
Hmm.
something I watched on Oprah years ago where someone was explaining it as everyone has a frequency like a radio. And we're going old school now, people. There's AM, there's FM, but
Right. You
everybody
guys
has,
remember?
yeah, but everyone has a frequency. And when you tune into their frequency, it's an energy that you connect with. So when
Yes.
they're gone, you still feel that connection because their frequency is still there. And I think
Yeah.
that's a great way to think about, because like you, I didn't grow up really with religion, Bridget. I don't, you were maybe a little,
I went every Sunday. I
then
said I
that,
grew up.
yeah, you did
I
know
grew
that.
up Catholic light. I did not go to
Yeah. I
Catholic
got it.
school. Yeah, but
Catholic
I.
white. I got it.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
still, there's so many ways to view this time of life, and whatever brings you comfort and whatever
Mhm.
works for you, whatever resonates with you, go for it, because that's
Well,
what's
and sorry, didn't mean to step on you, Colleen, but I think I got very excited because that really resonates with me. Whatever I think, you know, whatever it is that you want to do at this point or what makes you feel good is what you should go with, is learning what does. I feel like part of what menopause does, I always say, is Mother Nature's way of like getting you to sit up and pay attention to yourself. But I also think it's like, why do you like what you like? You have to re-examine what it is that you want. It's not just in the wanting, it's in the self-investigation that you have to do at this phase of life to realize like how you're going to get to the next part. There is a lot of soul searching that I think is really good for us to do right now by ourselves, with our friends, about what we want, because truly in this country we are going to, you know, have to have some kind of resistance to some of the things that are going on. And how are we planning on doing that for each other? And not just like, I'm not talking about political policy. How are we going to be there for each other? How are we going to have shoulders to cry on? How are we going to hug the ones that we love? How are we going to take care of people? And really just not saying like, this is the time to find what comforts you and what feels good for you. This is the time to figure out what comforts you, what feels good for you, and how to stay, you know, connected to the people that you care about.
Right. I mean, I feel like at this time, there's so many, like, okay, me personally, my little life, nothing too bad is happening, but I love so many people that scary things could happen to.
Sure.
That, yeah, that how can I be happy when they can't have a good life? I cannot be, even though, so what? That this is happening to me. I can't feel 100% if bad things are happening to them.
Right.
So, you know, so I
well, and
think
that's
that
where
is,
community comes in.
that's
If
where the
you,
community is.
Exactly.
That's
I
where
was
we
going to
have
say,
to do
because
that.
it really is hard when you think about the idea of people that you love, you know, being ill or passing away or whatever it is, and you love them so much, or, you know, they leave your life. Like it doesn't have to be death. You can
right,
grieve the end of a friendship, relationship, anything. I think that is very much about staying in the moment. And that is very much accepting what the end is going to be for all of us. And hopefully that adds value to the present moment, right? Knowing that you won't have it forever allows you to have that value in the present.
Right. Mhm.
this is why I love conversations with
I
women in our
know.
demographic,
I
because
know.
I have no patience at this age for small talk. I really
Uh,
don't. I wish I did, but I sit there going, really?
yeah.
Really? This is,
Yeah.
but conversations that enrich and make you think and make you maybe rethink some of the things that you believed or thought. It just they just are so enriching in your life.
Mhm.
And I love that. But I also want to make sure we talk about your new clothing line. because
Oh, well then.
Yes.
Let's do
because
that.
we would be
Yeah.
I mean, it's not
remiss.
super new. It came out in
Well,
August.
that's super new.
I
I
mean,
mean,
but it is a perfect time for you guys to go and buy it because
Hmm.
not only are things going on sale for the holidays, I
mhm.
have one more collection that is dropping on Monday, my
Oh,
November holiday collection. And that has been I've had a ball. I mean,
oh,
I've
wow.
had such a good time doing this, and it has been so glorious and so wonderful. It's made me connect with lots of different type of people, and I want to bring younger people back to QVC. It's not your grandmother's QVC anymore. I mean, they are an unbelievable shopping hub for some of the best in-house brands, some of the best national brands that I've ever seen. And I just don't think I realized until they approached me about the Age of Possibility, which is the platform that they've created for women over 50, what we're doing, what we're accomplishing, how we're moving through the world, all different kinds of women, which I think is just wonderful. Um, it's changed QVC into a very different type of experience. It's not just like, oh, at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're buying a fake diamond, It really is. The quality is incredible. The prices are extremely competitive, and I really think that it's just a fun way to shop. You're shopping with friends. You know the hosts, but to me it's very important for women our age and younger to understand that is a great shopping option. It really is. And once you have an understanding of your size in QVC sizing, or the brand tells you how to size yourself, you can consistently buy,
Right.
and you won't have a problem with sizing. They're very strict about it. So it,
Yeah.
it is really helpful. In a lot of ways, it makes the shopping process much easier.
Yeah.
Well, we were recently on with
Mhm.
Mally as well on Over
Uh-huh.
50 and Fabulous. Had the time of our lives. Had,
She's hilarious.
She
she's
is.
so much
She's so
fun.
funny.
And I used to buy a lot from QVC when the kids were younger, and I would be home with them and I would
Mm.
shop. And being on that set, it was so like different than I imagined it to be. And there were so many great brands that were just coming on. Like we'd be talking to the CEO of a company and they're like, just give me a minute. And they'd go on and their
And they're
I
product would
know. And
sell
closet.
out.
And they come back. Yeah. It was
You're like, what
amazing.
just
I,
happened?
Colleen
exactly.
was,
They all
yeah.
visit each other's sets. It's
Oh,
it,
they do.
it's
Yeah.
so funny and crazy to me. And it is, I call it the Olympics of live television, because there's live television like, Today Show, Good Morning America, whatever. But when you're trying to make friends with an audience you can't see and try and sell them something at the same time, that's hard.
Mhm.
Again, I want to know that I'm doing it for the right reasons. I want to know that I'm introducing something into your wardrobe that will bring you joy, utility, and hopefully both, right? That's the idea. And you think an hour is a long time to sell the clothes. It's not. It's never enough time. It's never enough time.
Right.
You want to show
Right.
people the 5 different ways they can wear something, and there's no time for that. So I only get frustrated by that. And I have fallen a little bit behind in my how to and get ready with me's, because I've been a little loopy lately. Been a little
You have a
little
lot
busy. The
going on.
last the last
Yeah.
2 months have been pretty brutal. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, man.
Uh, you do the
It's a
best you can without
with
judgment. You
yes, that's
I'm
right.
trying.
It
I'm
it
really
did not
trying.
come through to me. It did not it has not come through to people who
well,
watch.
Bridget, we're
Yeah.
blinded by the beauty of your pink
I know
outfit,
I'm
which
wearing one
happens to
of
be
Exactly.
by
by
Stacy
Stacy
London.
London.
It is
And
by Stacy London. That is what you're wearing is the pink Ponte oversized jacket that
yes.
we first started selling in
Woo.
August. People love the fabric because it's so soft. The pant is a lantern pant that it matches, and it pulls on, has
Mhm.
pockets, easy peasy. I am not of the I no longer hold on to the idea that if you don't have hard pants, you'll gain 10 pounds because you'll just wear an elastic waist. At this stage of my life, I just want a pant that I can put on and go.
Mhm.
So I cut them so that when you wear them as a pull-on pant, they still look like a trouser and they
Right.
still give you that sophisticated effect.
Mhm.
A blazer is still going to look great. You could wear that pink blazer with trousers or jeans.
Right.
And I want you to have options so that while you are reevaluating this stage of your life, you also have fun playing dress up and figuring out like what appeals to you now. So a lot of what I did was kind of experimental. Collars and cuffs that come off the shirts that you can switch and change out, or lapels on coats that you can switch out and change color. Things that give you kind of Garanimals for grown-ups meets Transformers.
uh,
But that's such a great idea to be able to change the collar or change, who I love that it comes into your head, because we would sit there and never think of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you know what? That just is that one thing. I will tell you, I've wanted to do edibles since 2007 was the first time I brought up the idea of edibles. So look, it took only how many 17 years to make that dream a reality, but they're out now and you can go and get them.
And they're easy to travel with because
yes, well, that's the material.
The great idea. Yeah. They're so easy.
The Ponte material does not wrinkle very much. It's very easy to steam if you need to. It's almost, my velour suits, which are coming out this week, I think those might be my favorite, because literally you look like you're going to a cocktail party, but you feel like you're getting into bed to watch football.
Yeah.
Okay. You sold me up until the football. I was ready to
getting into watch Sister Wives, getting into watch.
Okay, that's right now probably would be the Holiday Baking Championship, but other than that,
okay, I'm down with that. The Holiday Baking Channel. You could watch. I was actually to go to sleep last night. I put on Great British Baking Show.
It's so calming, isn't it?
It is. Everybody. I'm like, I don't care who wins. I don't care what they look like. I just like hearing everybody's voice.
It's so good, but the line is so cute. We cannot wait to see the next. And honestly, that might be a suit, Bridget, that we have.
Oh, yeah. Well, Colleen was laughing at me while we were waiting to go on at QVC. I was ordering from QVC on my phone.
Yeah. That's the danger of being at QVC.
I know.
I see something I like, and then I can just buy it right there. Like I can just pull up the app and I'm like, yes, it's on this rack.
That's what I was doing.
I'm like, whose is this? And then I just go and buy it. So the problem with that is if you were ever trying to sell clothes on QVC as a way to make money, I don't, because I just buy them back in shoes. I don't know. It's a really sneaky business model.
It sure is.
It's kind of a brilliant one. And I was a little sad that the store closed. I was all excited to go see.
I know, but I think they've just been too busy. They're involved in so many different programs and doing so many shows on the road. I really think, QVC is coming more and more into this modern focus. And I feel really lucky to be part of that family. And I think that all of the people who are working there and the designers that are already there are so remarkably talented. It's like humbling to be around that. And I just hope to learn more and do better. And so if you are wearing my clothes, please always feel free to DM me on Instagram, because I love to help people find things that fit them. And I also, I love to hear complaints. If you don't like something, I want to know about it. All right. I don't want you to be mean to me.
No complaints.
Okay, Bridget. Okay, Bridget.
Because my first order of my clothes were too big. So I was like, I need a smaller size. So I returned it and which I'm going to learn the QVC sizing.
I'm telling you, QVC has a size chart, which I tell everybody to look at before you buy anything, because it is not like, there's very few standardized clothing sizes out there. QVC does their best to have the same size across all fashion brands, so that you're not talking about a different size for each brand. You may be talking about a different cut, like one may be a crop pant and one may be a long pant, but you should be the same size in both. So it takes a second to learn if you are, doing sizes from other brands that are not on QVC that are all different.
Right. And my ego got a little bit stroked there
because
it was a smaller size. And I was like, I like this a lot.
Okay, but you can let go of that pressure, because it doesn't matter what size you are.
It doesn't.
Cut the tag and enjoy life.
My mental brain.
Yeah. And that's not. I made the clothes specifically so that size isn't what you're thinking about.
Right.
Which is great.
It's great. Yeah, it's great. I have the pants on too. Yeah.
She's got the whole little set.
Yeah.
So you also have a show coming out next year.
I do, on Amazon, with my old partner in crime. We're both old. So yes, Clinton Kelly and I are doing a show called Wear Whatever the F You Want on Amazon. I can't say that much about it yet, but what I will say, it is not a remake of What Not to Wear. So if you were looking forward to that, I'm sorry, you will be experiencing something quite different. But I like to think of it as the modern day makeover, which means that the makeover needs a makeover, right? The makeover genre needed a makeover. So I think that's where we're at.
Ooh, that's exciting.
We're going to look
yeah,
forward to that.
yeah.
So that'll be
Is it?
so
I think it'll
cool.
be, I'm not positive. I'm sure well, when I have the information, I'll give it to you, but I think it's April 2025.
Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yay.
Stacey, please don't wait another 4 years before we get to talk again.
Oh my God, has it really been that long?
Well,
I think we've run
we've
each
seen you in
other.
a bit.
We've
We've
run
seen
each
you in a
other.
bit.
Okay, all right.
But we're
Yeah.
always like all doing 5,000 things.
Exactly. And you can always call me and tell me to come on. I'm always going to come on.
Thank you.
Thank you
We
so
are
much.
so excited to see that passion in you and you living your best time of life, because you deserve it and so much more. So thank you so
Well, the same to both of you. And
Thank you.
honestly, again, this is what makes me so happy, right? When we connect on this level, like now I know you are dealing with your mom, you're dealing with your dad and your father-in-law. Like these are all things that if we know that about each other, we can check in. We can just say like, you doing okay? You need anything? My friends have been amazing to me. They were amazing to me when my father passed away in the exact same way. I'll tell you the one thing that somebody did for me. Oh my God, I could start crying thinking about it. One of my best friends who's known me for about 35 years. And the day after my father died, I don't even remember that when I was in the hospital, I was just texting people saying, Dad died, Dad died, Dad died. I don't remember who I texted, who I told. And the next morning when I woke up, there was a bag at my front door that had a Snuggie and fuzzy socks and like a hot chocolate mix or something. And she was like, I find that when I'm grieving, I need to wear something soft and it feels like a hug. You don't need to open the door. You don't need to come find me. You don't need to thank me. Let's talk when you're feeling better. And honestly, every time I think about that, I think I need to send fuzzy socks to somebody, or I need to send a Snuggie to somebody if they're going through it, or if they've lost somebody near to them. What I also do just to keep my dad's memory alive is I have like a little atomizer of his cologne and I spray it on all his old sweaters. And then I put the arms over my shoulders and I give myself a hug.
I love that.
That reminds me of you, Colleen, in the story about your dad.
My dad's cologne. Yeah, my dad had a very specific Cartier cologne, and we had it next to him when he passed. But I've seen a lot of people, which I think is a great idea. If someone is ill in your family, they put on a white T-shirt and they paint the arms and they do a hug in the T-shirt. So when the person's gone, you still have their hug on your shirt.
I'm gonna cry, y'all.
But how beautiful is that?
I do
but
have,
this is,
it's been golly, how long? My dad died in 97, and I still have one of his flannel shirts. So I kept it in plastic for a long time so I could smell it. But
I know, because you don't want to lose
97,
the scent.
so it has.
It's so true.
Yeah,
it's so
it
true.
is. Those
I just think these conversations have such so much more value and really help each other. And like you said, now we're going to think snugglies. Bridget and I are always going to think we got to get snugglies for somebody because it's soft.
You can get them anywhere. It's not like you can CVS and sometimes they have snuggies. It's just the gesture of recognizing that something tactile and soft would be an aid in terms of grief is something that never would have occurred to me, but I have such a highly empathic, emotionally intelligent friend. She was like, I learned this and I'm passing this on to you. And now I try to do it whenever anybody needs it.
And that's kind of honoring your dad.
Yeah.
Because you do it because it was a memory that you have with your, of your father passing. So it's kind of sweet. I love that.
Sweet. Yeah.
And it's just, we just get better with age. We get more thoughtful. We get more considerate.
And we just know what we want. So,
Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you so much for coming on.
It was my pleasure, ladies. Oh my God. It was so good to see you both. Bridget, you look great in pink.
Oh, thank you. I love pink. I love pink.
Wonderful. Well,